and I got mine this morning. So you can take them home, you can take them home with you. And now it is my great pleasure, because I heard a version of this talk earlier today, so it's really my great pleasure. I really liked it. So here's Tony Jackson.
That's right.
Thank you. What beautiful music, Billy and Kelly. I had no idea that I would be blessed to hear that beautiful music when I came here this morning. You never know what you're going to get being a guest speaker. And so I'll pass your cards out. Thank you all for allowing me to be here this morning. I was sharing with the earlier service that when I came in, I was just so delighted. It was like a family. There was maybe 7 or 8 people here. Maybe 10, I don't know. But it was, I got such a warm greeting coming in the door, and you know, somebody straightened out my tie, and I'm sure I was, because you know you can't see behind you. Usually there's some things undone back there, so I was grateful for that, and I'm grateful for each one of you, and you know, just the feeling that I get just greeting you, and you know, this feeling of being loved is so sacred. And everything in life is sacred, isn't it? Everything in life. You know, we go through life and we think of things as mundane. That's what we get, right? We get a mundane life. If we think of everything as beautiful and holy, then that's what we get. We get what we think. You know, Charles Fillmore said that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Buddha said that, you know, you become your thoughts. And so these are the things that we're here to talk about today, and it's the fact that how do we get to the point where we're at right now, where we're looking and seeking our joy? Why do we seek our joy? Where has it gone? Hasn't it always been right here? It's always been right here inside of us. And so we get to that point where in our life where we get to these points where we're confused, and we go through stages of what happened? What happened with my joy? What's the meaning? What happened to the meaning in life? Where has that gone? Where has that gone? How do I get that back? I was sharing with the earlier service about one of my former mentor, Cherie Larkin, who was a licensed teacher. Now she's a minister in Nashville. And she used to always say, my mama's told me that every child is born, Cherie, with everything they need to express who they are, their unique gift in life. You know, she wasn't speaking from new thought. She was speaking from intuition. Every child is born with everything they need to express who they are in life. That unique gift that each one of us are. You know, that's sacred. That point in us, inside of ourselves that is sacred. That gift that will not be denied. That's who we are. We're individuals. You know, that which cannot be divided is who we are. And so I use the analogy of the Michelangelo carving, where he was quoted as saying, I saw the angel inside the marble, and I carved away until I freed it. And so this is a great analogy for that masterpiece within us, that individual that we spoke of, that gift that each one of us are, that cannot be denied. It's a gift that comes in many, many different expressions, many different forms. But it's just seeking a recognition of it. And it's always there. The point with Michelangelo is that it wasn't just a believing that angel was inside of there. It was a knowing, which is the difference between faith and believing. Faith is a knowing, not just a believing, but it is a knowing. And anything less than a knowing could not have freed that beautiful piece of art that Michelangelo freed, that angel within. And the same holds true with us. Nothing less than a knowing of who we are, a conviction that there's something inside of us much greater than our surface intellect, There's something much, much greater that will not be denied, that needs to be expressed. And that's you and I. And so those things that cover up that masterpiece, some of those are fears, guilt and shame, feelings of not being good enough. Those things accumulate. You know, we buy into them. From the time we're born, we learn, and so the spirituality becomes one of subtraction, not addition. You know, so often in life we go around and we seek these things that we need to add to ourselves. We think that somehow we're not good enough, and that's exactly where that consciousness comes from. It comes from a lack consciousness that says, I need to add more to myself, that I'm not good enough. And you see, a gift is free. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to buy it. And that's who you are. You are a gift. And so you don't have to go out and earn your joy. Your joy is awaiting you. What's yours to do is to take away those things that block your joy. Those things that say, I'm not good enough. Those things that judge yourself. I use the analogy of the Garden of Eden parable in the first service, of how God commanded the first couple not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Well, this whole story is thousands of years, even predates Moses. And this is a parable and a great analogy for what goes on inside of our consciousness on a minute-by-minute basis. Eve representing the heart, Adam representing the intellect. God, of course, representing our true higher self. And so, in the beginning, there was spiritual man. There was the spiritual nature of man. And the garden, with all of these trees, represented divine ideas. And there was one divine idea that was off limits. It was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God commanded that in the day that you eat from that, you will die. Do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So along comes the snake that says, you will not die. Well, the snake represents the primal brain, or modern psychology likes to call it the id, or the ego. And so the primal brain, its primary desire is to sense, is to experience through sense consciousness, the five senses. And so before that time, spiritual man was not living through his sense consciousness. There was no looking out here and seeing separate bodies or separate, space-time continuum. There wasn't any separation. Separation was not known. But at this time, here introduced the primal brain, represented by Satan or the snake, which says, you will be like God. And so in the parable it says, so when the woman saw the tree was good for food, it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband, who he also ate. Then the both of them, their eyes were opened. But it was only until after both of them had eaten that it says that their eyes were opened. You see, it takes intellect and heart together. That's what makes wisdom. And so when both of them had decided, I am going to partake of this judgment, this tree of judgment. So at that point they were judging good and evil. They were making these moral judgments upon themselves. And then immediately after both of them together had partaken of the fruit, then the next line says, and then their eyes were opened. And at that point, they began to see the world through their sense consciousness. They began to take everything within themselves as reality out here, which is the reflective world. The reality is that which is within us, that divine part of who we are. And so then the next line, they immediately found that they were naked, which basically means they were vulnerable. They had a fear, and so they covered up. that's what we do. We cover up. Because of our fears, we cover up. We put these things on us that Michelangelo had to reveal, to set free that beautiful work of art. And so when we start to cover up and we start to be ashamed of who we are, or maybe we're not good enough, how dare we say that we're God, that we're the divine? How dare you say that? That's what you say to yourself. Well, how dare I not? That's probably the most shortcoming of mankind, is to not realize their own divinity, and then to live a life of illusion that says, I'm not good enough. It's the primary reason for unkindness in the world, for separation. And in the next line, it shows that God was looking for them. So they became separated from what the New Gospels call the council, or God. They became separated from that which was them. And then it says that Adam and Eve took off running in the garden and hid from God. As if you can hide from yourself, right? Didn't we just talked about how there's no place where God is not? His center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. And that's who you are, because there's only one presence. And so there was this separation, feeling separated from yourself, that divisional thing which unity is trying to bring back into wholeness, into oneness. And so after the separation, then it goes on to talk about how God says, where are you, Adam? Where are you? And Adam responds that I was ashamed because I was naked. So he's vulnerable. You see, so this is an analogy to how we look at ourselves. And we don't want to face that which what we really are, that divinity within us. And so we hide. We put on this clothing that masks who we really are. And so we live in this world of sense consciousness, and here awaits this beautiful divine self that says, where are you? Where are you? Why are you hiding? Who told you that you were naked? Was the next line. Did you eat from the tree that I commanded you not to? And then, of course, his line was, the woman made me do it. Right? We still say that. And she said, the devil made me do it. But that is a prime example of projection, which is the next. The sequence of this is exactly the sequence that we go through in our own consciousness. That's the whole reason of this parable, is to show you cause and effect in each stage of development, of coming to this false conclusion of who you are. And as I pointed out earlier, that at any point in this stage, it can be reversed. You could say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Make a conviction to say, I am going to surrender to the truth. I'm going to surrender to that which I know is truly me. No longer am I going to buy into this story. I'm greater than that. And so oftentimes we become so comfortable and complacent, that comfort of, even in suffering, the fear of the unknown is so great that we'd rather suffer than move into that which is ours to do, into that place that brings us joy. Because it's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of the unknown. Just like in the parable. The fear of not knowing what's next. You know, this, I was sharing earlier with the first service about an experience I had in leadership, where I experienced this, taking apart those things which